Good evening, and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and of course YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it here.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but it's designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television, news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Well, let's begin by welcoming anchor Rajee Narine-Singh, a famous transgender activist, actress, author, mystic, and a reality television star. She is of multiracial descent, and she has appeared on more than 35 television shows across the world. Good evening, Rajee.
Good evening, and Al, I know you get a little flustered when you introduce me.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's just something that comes over you, right?
It's not that. I'm a little flustered because I hear that you're going to be riding in a parade.
I
Grand
sure
Marshal.
am.
You're going to be at Pride of America this coming weekend.
Wasn't
that exciting to hear that?
Yes, I was surprised it came out of left field.
Yeah.
Didn't expect it, but I got the phone call, and they were like, would you be, and I'm like, yes, of course, it's an honor.
Have you been a Grand Marshal of a Pride Parade before?
I never have. I've been in many parades, but never been a Grand Marshal. All my blood, sweat, and tears have finally paid off.
So there's the answer why I was a little at Twitter in your introduction. I'm sitting next to the Grand Marshal of Pride of America. Congratulations.
I'm going to bring it too, and I'm also super excited about the first trans woman winning a Grammy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So let's welcome anchor Dr. Julio Capo Jr. Julio is a proud board member of the Stonewall National Museum and Archives in Fort Lauderdale, one of the largest LGBTQ archives in the United States, an associate professor of history and the deputy director of the Wolfsonian Public Humanities Lab, WPHL, at Florida International University. He is the author of the book Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940, and an editor and contributor to Made by History section of the Washington Post, which offers historical content to today's headlines. Good evening, Julio.
Hello. Thanks for having me. And I just want to plug a little quick thing with Stonewall. It's kind of incredible. So Stonewall National Museum and Archives has now existed for 50 years, 50, almost as old as Stonewall, the rebellion itself. And this, 2 weeks from now, on the 25th, February 25th, they're hosting their 50th anniversary gala. So check it out, support the great work that they're doing, preserving our history when so much of it is under attack. All right, now let's welcome anchor Jasmen Rogers. Yes, Jasmen is a queer Black Floridian focusing most of her work at the intersections of race and gender. Given the titles Verbal Assassin and Coalition Magician, I love it, Jasmen creates ways to intentional and unapologetic diversity in every space. As the marketing and events coordinator for Hotspots and Hotspots events and co-founder of Let's Get Lucky, Jasmen works to diversify programming and uplift the voices of South Florida's queer and lesbian communities. In her spare time, Jasmen serves on several community boards, spends way too much time in Target, and marvels through travel and with her fiance and her puppies. Hi.
Yes, 2 little doggies. Oh, thank you so much. Super excited to be here. It's Black History Month, and we're heading into Women's History Month. So I feel like I've got my superpowers for 60 days. Yeah. So super excited to be doing events in partnership with Happening Out for Women's History Month. We have gallery openings and a lot of really exciting things happening.
Yeah, and we have to make sure that we say for Jasmen's benefit, she is the driving force at the Art Gallery on Dixie that's going to do a women's event next month. And on March 22nd, Wednesday, March 22nd, we're going to do a special lesbian edition of Queer News Tonight, and then do a town hall on Women's History Month and the women of the South Florida community, and we're going to use a Sunshine Performing Arts Center to do it, and all led by Jasmen. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a necessary conversation, especially when we talk about Wilton and who's welcome and what that looks like.
No doubt.
We have to talk about who's missing out of LGBTQ. So very, very excited about that. Well, let's welcome anchor Jeff Oliverio. Jeff is the founder and treasurer of the Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council and My Hollywood Pride, which just held their 2nd annual event in downtown Hollywood. Exciting. Jeff is returning as co-chair for the upcoming 2023 National LGBTQ Task Force in October. The task force events, including the upcoming Winter Party Festival in March, has given back more than $3.3 million to the LGBTQ community organizations in South Florida. Hey, Jeff.
Good evening, and tonight is the State of the Union, so maybe you should check out our State of the Union if you want to be politically minded.
Yeah.
And there'll be some interesting responses tonight. I heard from the Republican side and from a certain candidate that's running for president, who I won't name his name.
Yep.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, February 7th, 2023.
Well, let's begin by queering up South Florida and Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis tries to punish Orlando venue that hosted a Christmas drag show.
We're back. A Drag Queen Christmas. Hosted by Trinity the Tuck and Monet Exchange. We're coming to your city. Get ready, the Naughty Tour is back. 38 cities from coast to coast. Get tickets at dragvans.com.
Well, the administration of the anti-LGBTQ+ Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is trying to take away the liquor license of a performing arts center as punishment for hosting that drag show that you just saw, that children were allowed to attend. The Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation filed a complaint on Friday against the Orlando Philharmonic Plaza Foundation, Incorporated, after it hosted a drag queen Christmas show on December 28th. The complaint took issue with the fact that the drag show was advertised as, quote, all ages, end quote, and said the note warning about inappropriate content, quote, was barely visible, end quote. As per the complaint, the show included sexually explicit songs and dances without expressly prohibiting children from attending. However, in reality, the venue left it up to parents' discretion, parental rights, with a sign that read, quote, While we are not restricting access to anyone under 18, please be advised some may think the content or context is not appropriate for under 18, end quote. Out former Florida legislator Carlos Guillermo Smith has shared his view on the matter. He tweeted that this attempt by the DeSantis administration is nothing but a misuse of regulatory power that can cause severe economic consequences for local businesses. Okay. Basically, it's on. Department of Professional Regulation is just an administrative hand of Governor DeSantis. So he has the power to do this, and it'll be a question of how far he pushes it. I suspect he's saber rattling in doing this. Our house here in South Florida is in the same situation. They could have Department of Business Regulation do the exact same thing to our house. The argument is that if you're under 18 and material is sexually explicit, that children are under 18 are not allowed to be there. The proof of the pudding is defined sexually explicit. They're mixing adult entertainment of nudity and the idea that verbal conversation is sexually explicit, therefore pornographic, therefore children cannot be present. There's no proof of that. And there's no court documentation follow-up that speech is the same thing in public as pornographic material. That's the issue here. So court challenge at the minimum is coming. I suspect we won't get there because the case is so incredibly weak. But it is a representation of what the governor is trying to prepare for. And don't forget, every single thing he does is leading to November of 2024.
November of 2024, but Al, you made a comment on a show, I think a week or two ago, and you were saying that him being as radical as he is could really be his Achilles heel when he goes to the general elections. Yeah, it's a national thing. Because, yes, in Florida, he's maybe Texas.
He's preaching to the base for sure. Right. And when he gets to a national, it's just a question of that base is coming with him. Newsmax is coming with him. Fox News is coming with him. Tucker Carlson and Laura are coming with him. How far beyond, we don't know yet.
Whether or not it's a weak case, the power it has to intimidate a lot of businesses and organizations could be incredibly powerful. That is, we don't know how many folks will actually not put on certain shows or not for people who are even over 18. I like Carlos Guillermo Smith's point here because it is anti-business in many ways, right? That is, the framing of it could easily become against really kind of freedom of expression, right? I mean, things like pornography are ambiguous terms. I mean, that is, it's also ironic that the way that they've peddled themselves to be the party of parental rights, but not in this case. That is, the parents here don't have rights to determine. Decide. You can't decide. It's what they decide. The parents should decide. Yeah. Right. So it's.
Right. I agree. I think that is the irony of not only parents' rights, but also small government. So I think that the Republicans pride themselves on being the government should not intervene, the government should not do this, and yet we find them intervening again. People that are under 18 cannot sign up to go to a drag show by themselves, right? There has to be some type of
and I think we've legislated this. I mean, if the content of this show, I would imagine, if it were to be filmed, could be shown at 8 o'clock on regular broadcast television, because RuPaul's Drag Race is shown at 8 o'clock on broadcast television, cable, but still at an hour that is appropriate. Children, quote unquote children, who are 13 can go to a movie that shows explicit sexual content and even some light nudity. So children between the ages of 13 and 18, we've already legislated this. So this is such a thin attack at the LGBTQ plus community.
The party of contradiction over and over again.
At the end of the day, one of the things that jumps off for me at the table of conversation is with weak legal position against the First Amendment, the observations of, here are all of the counter alternatives of the exact same thing. You have to get to, why is he doing this? probably only one reason.
Yeah.
He's running for president of the United States, and he thinks that this is a path to say, see, I have your parental back, and I'm going to scare you, which means you're going to support. And at the end of the day, the focus should not be on the drag queen. For us, for our community, and those that are ACLU, those that are speech embracers of the First Amendment, we should not be distracted by the drag queen. That is misdirection. It is gaslighting. We should be paying attention to what the issue is, which is a person that is trying to get to the White House by any means necessary. That's what we're watching.
And if I can just add, because it's front and center right now in the state of Florida, is that he is not protecting our children from gun violence, which is the biggest thing that is threatening our children in Florida. And he's going for open carry, permitless. And so that is the thing that our children are at risk for. Drag queens are not.
And listen to the children. Like, what is it the children are? And we keep on saying children in this broad term, but like that is like, what are youth looking for? What do they need protection from? That is, I believe in agency, right? That young people know what they need, and I think that listening to them is what has to happen.
He has shown us his hand. We should listen to what he's saying.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right, let's queer up trans rights. Trump will punish doctors and hospitals providing trans health care if elected president.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers, which are in no way licensed or approved for this use. My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. The bill will also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports, and we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parents' consent. The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent. No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. It was all when the radical left invented it just a few years ago. Under my leadership, this madness will end. Thank you very much.
In a recent video released on his social media platform, former President Trump vowed to punish doctors who provide gender-affirming health care to minors if he is re-elected next year, wading into a contentious debate that has captured the attention of state and federal lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. In the nearly 4-minute-long straight-to-camera video, Trump outlined his plan to, quote, protect children from left-wing gender insanity, end quote, unveiling a slate of extreme policy proposals targeting transgender identities, including a federal law that recognizes only 2 genders and bars transgender women from competing on women's sports teams. Trump also said that he plans to pass a law barring minors from receiving gender-affirming health care in all 50 states and intends to direct the Justice Department to investigate the pharmaceutical industry and individual hospitals to determine whether they, quote, deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich, end quote. As per the video, doctors treating transgender youth will be booted from Medicaid and Medicare under his leadership. The video also mentioned that his proposed policy changes would extend to education and school officials. All right, y'all, we have a lot to unpack here. I don't even know where to begin because there is, so it just is because there's a lot. The first thing that I want to just kind of stay out there is that he is one, history proves him wrong. That is that trans people have always existed.
Yes.
And the historical record is really, really clear. This is not something that people invented 3 years or whatever he said, right? That's simply untrue, and the historical record makes that very clear. There have been many gender expressions. There have been many forms of gender and sexual constructions, understandings, expressions, way beyond the binary of male and female, straight and gay, so on and so forth, right? He is absolutely wrong, and history proves him wrong. I also want to say, this is kind of opening us up to something else, but one of the things that has to happen, right? I mean, so clearly this is meant to be a juxtaposition between him and Ron DeSantis in many ways, right? That is, as one, we could actually see a lot of parallels here between their platforms, right? That is very clearly pushing a very particular emphasis that puts trans people at the center of so many of these culture wars, right? This debate. Yeah. But one of the things that has to happen as we kind of resist and push against all of this, right? The inherent sexism, the inherent transphobia, and in many ways the inherent racism. There's layers upon layers to all of this, right? One of the things that I would want us to learn from and take from the rule book is the reproductive rights movement. That is, if we think about, there's so many parallels here. The Hyde Amendment in 1976 that clearly didn't allow Medicaid, for example, to pay for abortion, right? There's so many steps that we should learn from the reproductive, the womanist movement. There's lots of things that we need to learn from so that we can target this kind of rhetoric and make sure that it's, defanged.
Yeah. Well, you know what really struck me is when he said, for the last few years, listen, I'm a trans woman of a certain age, and I've been transgender a very long time. Yeah. And I want to say an excellent book that shows the history of trans people here on the planet. It's called Transgender Warrior. And it is, I learned so much reading that book, and it shows that we have a history. We've been here. There's a paragraph on ancient artifacts that show depictions of trans people with the breast and a penis and that sort of thing. So that just really struck me. But another thing I want to say is that my girlfriends are like, girl, if you want to get anything done, you better get it done now, because who knows what's coming in 2024. You know what I'm saying? And it's a shame, because it really literally could do a 360 for us.
I'm sorry that you had to even think about that.
Yeah.
And besides the broad context, I don't need to read that book to completely voice a rejection of what we just watched him say. Because the trans community doesn't have to justify how long they've been around to say this is really repugnant what we watch. So I don't need the book, although I appreciate the history. The defense of the trans community does not mean you have to prove your existence. And that's
what I felt for a lot of my life. And actually that I've had to justify my existence and not have, and almost feel like I have to apologize for my existence, you know? And so I tell you, it's scary. Hopefully he's not going to do, I mean, hopefully it's just a lot of hot air. He's not going to go anywhere.
No, take him at his word.
But let me tell you, what I'm really worried about is that DeSantis is going to get in the White House. And everything that Trump said in the video, I won't be surprised if DeSantis does the same thing. He
managed to bar trans people from serving in the military. I mean, over a tweet. Yeah. I mean, just as quickly, there was I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. I was thinking that this is from the man who, I guess this bill might be called, like, you can only grab people by their gender that they were born with. I won't use the word on air today. And a man who's who's been accused of sexual assault and is accused of multitude of crimes and is coming against and making this the focus of his campaign. It's pathetic. It's desperate. It's headline grabbing. And, you know, it pains me that we have to cover it. Of course, it is a real story. It pains me to see, you know, I've sat in PFLAG meetings with parents of very young children that are going through issues with their gender and seeing the pain and the struggles. And for this man to go on TV who has no information, has no agenda except for to create headlines, it's disgusting.
Right. And I mean, again, back to what we just discussed, this party that's supposed to be about limited government, right, is again invading. The part that struck me the most is parents being forced to allow. Like, those two words don't go together. Right. If you're a parent and you're allowed to do something for the health and safety of your child, and that's what you want to do, that should be it, point blank, period. No one is forcing you to take your child to receive gender affirming care as the adult that is in the home. You are making that decision for your household. What I think is also interesting is there are a lot of other chemical processes that parents are okay with their children receiving, or surgical processes that their parents are okay with their kids receiving that are not being banned. Whether that's cosmetic surgery for 16-year-olds who want breasts or who want a nose job or all this, or even hair color, you know, certain nail procedures you get at the nail salon that all have potentially long-term effects that are not being barred in the same way if we're really talking about the health of children. And I think that what is also scary to me is that we've seen Trump in the White House before, so it's not impossible, even with crazy rhetoric. And I just wonder how advocates will respond, organizers will respond. Are we learning any lessons from the wins and losses from around the country when we think about which Democratic candidate can stand up to that and what they're talking about, right? Because what we also know is that people understand that gender affirming care is an issue, but they're also like, I can't even get to the point of care if I can't afford eggs.
Right? Hello.
If my kid's getting fed up in school, right? I can't even get to the point of care if I can't get insurance.
Right.
So it's like, how do we counteract these, what folks are calling culture wars, which I hate, but to talk about the real kitchen table issues that will bring more people to our side?
You know, I have to tell you, a number of bullseyes here in our conversation. I just want to be, and from my seat, I want to be really clear. You ask a very reasonable question that flows out of reasonable observation, but that's not at play. There is no desire to come to a real conclusion. That's not what he wants. And so we've got to understand, I think, our community has to understand over the next 2 years, we are facing opponents and foes. And I hate to use the word enemy, but we are facing enemies that are working out of a playbook that we've never seen before. For a president of the United States, who's what we just watched, that was the president of the United States to say what he just said. We've never seen language like that come out of a president of the United States, it's because the playbook is new, and we've got to approach it in a new way. A couple of notes.
I will push back on that because this is also the country of slavery. So we have seen presidents. We have seen presidents say, "Girl." And if we also know, history has taught us that across the globe, the enslavement of African people in this country was called different and unique because of the way Black folks were treated in this country compared to other places. So we have seen presidents that held people as cattle say really terrible things that they would like to also keep going.
Let me modify observation of modern television audience. Because I do hear you. It's very important for us to remember, why is he doing this? Did he say anything like this in 2016? Nothing even close. What has changed in the last 5-6 years? Well, what has changed is he lost an election in 20 and Ron DeSantis. And so I think your observation is really important. And let me take a highlighter. He is comparing, contrasting to the other crazy that's going to be in the race. And so he's going out on this super extreme point of view to pull DeSantis out with him to compare and contrast. And we'll see what Governor DeSantis does next. Also, as it relates to that, remember, we've got to believe him. This is dramatic. We talk about gaslighting all of the time. I talk about DeSantis gaslighting all the time, Trump gaslighting all the time. That's what he did here. Now, he says, my children, our children, our children, our children. In the middle of that verbal dump that we just watched, right in the middle of it, he says, I intend to ban gender transition of any age. One sentence, he says that deep in the middle. Wow. That is a dog whistle for the craziest of the crazy. Because that's what he really wants to say. Children, 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 children. I mean everybody. Children, 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 children. For the red meat of what he's doing. So he's contrasting with DeSantis and pitching for the real voter in the primary that's going to vote for him or DeSantis right from the very beginning. Third thing that I want to mention is we have watched this person talk about children. We watched DeSantis talking about children. We talk about the contradictions. But this also, you talk about the sexual exploitation. Let me talk about the basic stuff of the attack on medical and doctors that they're just trying to get rich on our poor trans children. Excuse me. And this is coming out of the mouth of the person. Apparently, doctors are different than the hucksters that sell steaks or their casinos or their hotels or their bad reality shows. Apparently, there's a difference between what he did and the doctors that are just trying to get rich on our children. And the last thing that I want to say is we've watched this before. Well, I haven't seen it in my lifetime in Modern for President. You zero in on the issue of race. I was watching that, and frequently for me, to defeat gaslighting and making sure that I understand it, I try to provide comparisons to a black narrative of civil rights in America. Could this be justified in the exact same way? We had a governor in Alabama, George Wallace, that stood on the steps that justified no integration of my schools in Alabama, and justified. Wait, I don't care what the public says. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I don't care what the President of the United States says. We just watched that. That's exactly what we watch in Donald Trump and what we're watching in Ron DeSantis. I humbly suggest this is becoming dangerous. It's becoming dangerous.
One more line that was very frightening in there was he said he's focusing on the nuclear family of a man and a woman. So what does that do to all of our friends who have children from the LGBTQ community who are two men or two women or two trans people? What does that do to that community? He is going after the man who has children with 3 women.
I was going to say.
And hasn't cared for any of them. Is going at, is the person of family values, and is coming back in an even darker way than it did in his first election.
And why? Did his opinions change? No, it's to win an election. Power and money. That's what we're watching here.
If I may, I also just want to add, I know we don't want to talk about this forever because in some ways it kind of only fuels the, but I also feel like when there's things that are not factually correct, that they have to be debunked. And that is just for those who are watching, the cartoonish way that gender transition is portrayed here is not at all what actually it looks like, right? That is like, I've seen more sophisticated analysis of gender in episodes of South Park. Or this is not, it takes therapy, it takes years, it takes consent, it takes, I mean, it's not like you wake up one day trapped in a box. Like, this is not what it looks like. The language here is also, as we've all said, dangerous and not reflective of what it looks like.
Did anyone forget to mention Trump University?
The biggest.
Hello, the biggest one.
Wait, I just realized perhaps the problem here in analysis and his logic string is he actually went to. Maybe.
That's funny. I think it's so interesting because that also makes me think about Florida's attack on social transitioning. So even this idea that not everyone transitions in a medical way, a surgical way, or hormonal way, all of those different things. There are some people that say, call me by my new name. This is my name. These are my pronouns. And I know in Florida, they're trying to even stop things like that in schools and all of that. But I also think, and this will be my last comment, whenever the straights get fixated on something like that, I'm like, what are your kids? What are your kids? Somewhere, like, why are you so involved in my bedroom, in my family? Like, what is it about yourself or the inadequacy you feel that maybe one of your kids has just come out or is trying to come out that you are trying to prevent that? And I think that we need to be very, very mindful as a people that no person in office should legislate and rule from their religious beliefs and their own personal beliefs. We need to be doing what's best for the most of humanity as we can, and attacking trans people is not it.
Oh,
amen.
Amen.
I tell you,
not religion.
All right.
Three steps forward, 5 steps backward. Oh God. Anyway, let's queer up drag culture. 8 states would ban RuPaul Drag Race queens if children are present. Republican state lawmakers want to shield children by closing the curtain on drag performances. Legislation moving through several GOP-controlled capitals would ban the gender-diverse show in front of young people, including at schools, colleges, and on public property, sparking a furious response from the LGBTQ+ community and civil liberties groups. Arkansas Republican State Rep Mary Bentley told her fellow lawmakers at a recent hearing about a bill she's co-sponsoring to prohibit children from watching drag shows that might affect student performances. She said, we're just trying to keep, quote, we're just trying to keep minors away from sexually explicit material, end quote. Drag show restriction have become a leading cultural issue during this year's legislative sessions. Opponents argue that signing these measures into law might not only violate constitutional protections, but also provoke a broader cultural suppression of LGBTQ+ people. Right-wing protest of drag story hour events for children ramped up in 2022, and a number of conservative state lawmakers have sought to ban these programs. States such as Arizona, Florida, Oklahoma, North Dakota, Kansas, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Texas have proposed to ban RuPaul's Drag Race queens if children are present. Well, you know what? We've just become the political wedge. We're the scare tactic to the very conservative Americans, and that's what they're using. So whether it's drag shows or the trans community, anything, we're the ones now that are being used, and it's scary. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I can only be me, and I'm going to be here regardless, but it's like we fought so hard to get the little bit of rights that we finally got. and we still have a long way to go. And now it's like they're trying to rip those things away from us.
Well, and that's what's happening. A relatively small minority are trying to legislate for a majority. Just for everyone that's a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race started in 2010, I believe, and I have some experience with this. There was no protest of RuPaul's Drag Race. It was on logo. It was, all of the inclinations, the movement, the shows, all of the Murray shows for Christmas, etc. They have gone on for 12 years. There was no issue about it. The community wasn't up in arms. School boards weren't up in arms. Liberty Moms didn't exist, etc. This is a created issue. Yes. It was a created issue to create a wedge issue for power and money to win elections. I just remind all of the drag queens that will watch this story and think that they are under attack. They are. But please take some solace in the fact that the overwhelming majority of Americans support the LGBT community, support gay marriage, support the broad embracement of what our communities, in terms of color, in terms of diversity, in terms of gender identity, they support that. These smaller percentages of voices are just like roaring lions in the distance, and we see that and think that everyone thinks that. Everyone does not think that.
I had an observation after watching the Grammys that celebrated 50 years of hip hop, and we got to see. I thought about Tipper Gore coming out against rap music and saying it was going to ruin children. And as I was watching it, I was thinking half of the people on the stage are on a CBS procedural show, the most family-friendly network that we have of the three major networks, including Queen Latifah, who was a militant black woman when I was in college. LL Cool J. Ice-T, they were all on stage, and then we got to see Sam Smith, and I thought, oh, here come the villains, because the rap community now it was like they were the family-friendly portion of the show,
right.
and it's like almost the same type of attacks we're seeing against rap and the black community that happened, that they were going to ruin children. I remember growing up and the explicit lyrics on albums. We want to put explicit lyrics or explicit content on drag shows. It's very, very similar. I was texting my friend. I said, somebody better call up Tipper Gore to see if they can get her out after this Sam Smith performance. Right. And the next day, what did we see? We saw Ted Cruz posting about Sam Smith and Satan and all of these other things. And I said, exactly as Madonna said, if you're not pushing buttons, you're not doing the right thing.
You're not doing your job.
Yeah, it was like so methodical how it all happened.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes I think about conservatism and I'm like, y'all are boring. Like, not to trivialize like the power of folks that gender bend, whether it's at a story hour, drag queen bingo, in your everyday existence, however you choose to express yourself. But it's like, that is a fun time, right? Like drag brunch, drag bingo, like, that is a fun time. What are y'all doing for fun? Yeah. And why are you intent on stealing somebody else's joy that has nothing to do with it?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, has any of them been to a drag show?
Oh.
I mean, come on. They're the most talented
Some of the Steiners were actually drag queens.
Listen. All those conservative folks go behind.
I love Lady G. She is.
Will go behind closed doors. You'd be surprised.
And at the end of the day, and Julio and Wolfsonian has documented this really well. Your op-ed that was in the Washington Post, it was so well done to say, wait, we've seen this over and over again. We go through these wave cycles. Anita Bryant is a representation of that. At the end of the day, we see these cycles, and to clean it up, we need a good pie, and then we clean it up, and that's really what we've got to do now, is to say, what is it we're going to do to face and address this, because they're marginalizing big chunks of our community, and we have to stand up to it and say, first, this is inaccurate, and second, it really is repugnant, and third, it's constitutionally illegitimate.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have to be consistent to say it over and over again.
Absolutely. Well, let's queer up entertainment. Looking at Beyonce's gay Uncle Jonny and why she pays tribute at historic Grammy win.
I want to dedicate this award to my Uncle Jonny, the most fabulous gay man I've ever known and I ever knew, who helped raise me and my sister. He lived his truth. He was brave and unapologetic during a time when this country wasn't as accepting. And witnessing his battle with HIV was one of the most painful experiences I've ever lived. I'm hopeful that his struggle served to open pathways for other young people to live more freely. LGBTQI rights are human rights. I just want to say to you, Jay, that I'm so proud of you for making incredible strides towards changing stigmas in the hip-hop community. It's a privilege to watch you take those steps and to stand right next to you. I love you, and we're super grateful and honored. Thank y'all.
Beyonce's Uncle Jonny was a major part of the singer's Renaissance album, and when the record won the Best Dance and Electronic Album Award at the 2023 Grammys, it marked a historic occasion for the singer and the award show. She became the person to have won the most Grammy Awards of all time, and she made sure to thank her late gay uncle in her acceptance speech. Beyonce's latest album, Renaissance, is certainly a star-studded project featuring such talents as Grace Jones, rapper Bean, Thames, and of course, guest vocalist Big Freedia. But amid all the publicity, there's a newly announced major inspiration behind the album, and it comes in the form of Jonny, who died of complications from HIV. While Beyonce and her sister Solange Knowles called him Uncle Jonny, he wasn't actually their uncle. He was their mother, Tina Knowles' nephew. Whether he was technically B's uncle or not, he clearly had a major influence on the Lemonade singer, and he was more than an extended family member. While accepting a 2019 Vanguard Award from GLAAD, Beyonce said that it was Uncle Jonny who made her prom dress, contributed behind the scenes to Destiny's Child, and was a major influence on her and her sister Solange. The singer also spoke about Jonny in a 2006 interview, detailing his impact on her life. I'm a Beyonce fan, currently trying to get tickets to the concert, so that's a sad state of affairs. But I mean, in the album, she said, Uncle Jonny made my dress, right? You know, and I think it's just so special when children are able to see the abundance that we can have as humans in how we dress, who we love, how we behave, and all of that, and model that for larger culture, right? And it also makes me reflect on Bad Bunny's speech. He said, when you do things with love and passion, like that's what matters. That's what makes it big. That's what makes it huge. That's what will last for generations, is doing things with love and passion. And to me, that is very, very clear. How much love and passion she had for her Uncle Jonny, and how that has also contributed to her thanking the queer community in her speech, and doing music that is for the culture, and bringing on these queer influences on her album for all of us to take part in.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful, and I'm always really touched when people honor their ancestors, honor the people that impacted their lives, and especially Uncle Jonny being a gay man and him standing in his truth back in those days when it was really hard to do so. But he probably didn't realize how much he impacted her. And
I hope he did, though.
Well,
I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too, but sometimes we touch people in ways that just transcend, and they go deep. And if he did know, he probably didn't know that she'd be standing.
Right. He didn't see her success that way.
Exactly.
Right.
2023.
all-time winner.
Most
Yes,
awarded.
and sang his name.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how we live on.
Yeah.
That's how our loved ones live on through us.
You know, it's an interesting contrast to our repetitive conversation about the culture war embracements for power, money, winning elections. You can't criticize Beyonce on the level of her commitment to this person in her life, because she's been doing it for 20 years.
This is
consistently.
Right.
And that's exactly when you said the words, Rajee, of ancestors. That's exactly what that's what I was thinking. Is because we see this now with Renaissance and like but she has always paid homage and celebrated the ancestors, her ancestors, in a number of different intersections. Right, like she has always been that when she says these words, we believe her because she's always shown us that. Her embrace of queer folks, of trans folks, of people of all shades has always been right at the center of her music, of her art, and
Big
her
Frida.
is Big Frida. I mean, and this is
Give
not
her that platform.
It's powerful, and we all believe her because she's shown us that for a long time.
Yeah, I, like you, Jasmine, was sitting there watching the Grammys and thought, after she said that, I thought, take all my money. I'll pay whatever it is, because I have to support this woman because she supports our community and putting herself front at center of the queer community by saying it at the Grammys. Again, we've been talking about all these award shows. Again, it seemed like it was the most LGBTQ Grammys we've ever seen. And Beyonce, the most awarded
and the
artist.
50th anniversary celebration of hip hop, that segment wasn't so bad either.
Yes.
If I could disagree with both of you, however, mine is respect. It is not love. I am a boomer generational gay, which means the queen is Madonna. It's not Beyonce. So my observation is just slightly different, which is respect for Beyonce. I'm melancholy, to be honest with you, today about Beyonce. I watched that, and I agree with you. It was not only was the show unbelievably incredible for an award show, especially, but for our community, it was just unbelievable. The embracement and love in the room when we're watching what we're watching in these tiny state houses around the country, and then we're watching what's happening there at the Grammys. Beyonce's speech, I said last night, we did full reporting last night at Queer News Tonight on the Grammys, basically saying, oh my gosh, this was so gay, in a very positive way. And I made the note that I said, in the 21st century, if we collect 20 sound bites on LGBTQ community, a very good argument could be made that Beyonce's award will be one of the 20 verbal moments of the queer community, because he basically says, without saying her name, my goodness, this is historic. The entire room instantly knew Beyonce's done it. She's won the most, it may never be touched. There's a possibility, like Brady in Super Bowl wins, that this could never be touched. The entire room begins to break out in applause at that moment. And she realizes, wait, I've done this. She's only 41 years old, first off. And when she comes up, my point last night in the news was, wait, she didn't talk about the record label. She didn't talk about business. She didn't talk about money. She didn't talk about songs. She talked about family. My family, my family, my family. And let me talk about my uncle for a moment and remind everybody about Jonny. So all she's done is talk about family in the most important moment in Grammy history. And then says, and I would like to thank the queer community for all of their support, and they invented this category. The respect to our community is beyond. And I said that. Here's the history of this moment. You were in the 21st century. Here's one of the 20 sound bites of LGBT of the 21st century. Today, I am creamed in many circles. And the reason I'm creamed in many circles, I have to criticize our community, because she went to Dubai and opened that hotel and got paid $24 million. And because Dubai is Dubai, based on LGBT, et cetera, and so on, she doesn't support the LGBTQ community and got creamed today. And she's getting creamed. There are major LGBT publications that are just smashing her today.
After the speech?
Yes.
Wow. What are they saying? What are they insinuating?
It's absolutely, she shouldn't have gone to Dubai, and they come back to it. Well, first off, in fact, I'm not even going to get into analyzing that. My only point is, we tend to want it all the time.
Yeah.
Arguably one of the 20 great sound bites of the 21st century, and it's not enough for us.
Not.
I'm just saying, I'm melancholy over it, and this comes from a gay baby boomer that says Madonna is God, not Beyonce, but still mad respect for what she did for our community. Well, mad respect.
Well, and it gives me solace because with what's going on politically, and then to see people like her giving our community praise. So that's, like your point earlier, Al, you were saying that the majority of Americans support us.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Well, let's queer up gay culture. A new study finds men discriminate against feminine gay men. According to a new study out of the University of Sydney, both gay men and heterosexual men discriminate against effeminate gay men. The study, conducted by gender and sexuality researcher Ben Gerard at the university's School of Psychology, found gay and straight men prefer masculine over feminine gay men for a high status role, an indication feminine gay men may face implicit discrimination in the workplace. The study was published in the peer-reviewed journal Sex Roles. Gerard's research took the form of auditions for a faux TV campaign promoting tourism in Sydney. The ad aimed to sell Australia abroad with a spokesman who could be viewed as a leader and someone to be admired by the audience. A group of 256 gay and straight men were invited to watch casting videos and identify an actor who could fill the role. Gerard cast 6 different men to play both feminine and masculine version of actors auditioning for the spot. He found that both groups of viewers preferred the more masculine candidate for the ad. Predictably, both straight men with higher reported homonegativity and gay men higher in reported misogyny showed a stronger preference for the masculine gay actor over the feminine gay actor. I mean, I guess it's really easy to comment and say women have been experiencing this their whole life. So is this study a shock? I don't think so. And also our own community, we don't appreciate the differences in our own community. Right. And this is a real issue that I think we all need to address.
Yeah.
Whether it's, gay men against lesbians, the gay and lesbians against trans people, effeminate gay men over masculine gay men. I mean, these are just, again, putting people in boxes, and as a community, we should not be doing it.
Yeah, I can say, I mean, as a trans woman, before I transitioned, I was an effeminate gay man. That's how I identified. And I dated some gay men. I had some gay relationships, not many, because they were always trying to butch me up. I was never like masculine enough. And until I figured out, oh, wait a minute, no, I'm a trans woman. So I've seen it. And even when you look at gender, even from when we're children, the gender expectations on males a lot more stringent than females. I mean, I'm speaking in general. I mean, I know there's exceptions, but I'll give you an example. 2 little girls can walk down the street holding hands. People wouldn't bat an eye. Let 2 little boys do it. What's going on there? And they could just innocently be walking down the street. They're children. Also, the expectation of how a male should act. Like, I'll give you an example. A girl can be a tomboy and it's cute, right? But if a boy is a sissy or feminine, oh no, you better man up real quick. And we're talking about like a 5-year-old kid. They were calling me faggot at 4. So it starts very young. And they did a study, and I gotta say this real quick. they did a study. They took all these boys. They were like under 10. I can't remember the exact age. And they hooked them up to all these like things to monitor their heart rate and their emotions and everything. And they showed them emotional videos. Straight face, but the monitors were going haywire. The study showed that at a very young age, boys learn to suppress their or suppress showing their emotions.
Not feeling it, right?
No, but they're feeling it, but they learn to like mask it, and that is a reflection of the acceptance in society. I think it really goes deep, you all. Yeah. I think it goes really.
I think it's especially so much of my work that's at the intersection of race and gender and thinking about that, it's an attack on femininity, right? And I think that through all of the news stories that we've talked about tonight, that, the attack on trans girls in sports, the attack on, drag queens and all of that is like, how dare you want to put aside your masculinity? How dare you want to be a woman? But we also see that attack in the workplace, right? Jobs that women are doing or feminine people are doing are paid less than other jobs. Nursing, teaching, all of these different things compared to engineering and your corporate executives where men are supposed to dominate and be in those positions. So to me, it continues to be this attack on femininity and womanness and anything aligned even a little bit with softness, and things attributed to being feminine or a woman.
Oh my God, that is so powerful because that's what I felt from people, and I still do when I go out and about. How dare you? How dare you relinquish your manhood?
That's what it is.
To lower yourself to being a woman, and it's like this, almost like. People almost get angry over it. I felt that many times.
It's this idea of what people call privilege dislocation, that is to give away something that is privileged or like has privilege in society. So like your masculinity in this case, or like why would you not want to be, or why would you choose to relinquish? And that's the only thing. I mean, and this is slightly the only thing that's shocking to me about this headline is that the headline is a headline. That is like there is nothing surprising to about any single person. Who didn't feel that they knew this already, right?
A final thought that relates to it. Am I a racist? No. Am I homophobic or other related to gender, sexuality? No. Am I a misogynist? No. Am I an ageist, either in terms of I'm a boomer, but toward Gen Zers? No. But what this study does point out that is very fascinating, and a lot of people are writing about this, of why can't we get beyond where we're at, is innate discrimination, is what they call it. And what innate discrimination means is that you have been trained for so long, from so young, for so consistently, that you innately discriminate. And so you'll say, no, I'm not a racist. But innately you are. No, I'm not misogynistic against women, but innately you are. No, you're not against, you're not an ageist, but innately you are. And same for homophobia, which is what this study is talking about. It probably applies, as you, I think, correctly point out, in so many different ways. We're taught to think this way. And it takes so much work and effort to put in to get out of this innate feeling. So you go, no, I'm not a racist. No, I'm not homophobic. Oh, yes, you are. Right. You just don't realize how you implement your discrimination. And that is the work we have to do. Because this study points out, wait, I'm judging someone's speech pattern or how they're holding their hand and wrist and say, that makes you more than.
Right.
That's innate discrimination. Toward women, toward race, toward homophobic, toward ageist, I get people all over the time. I did this Trey Crowder interview, 100,000 views, 450 comments. You would be surprised the number of people that said, oh, we loved this interview. We loved this interview. The old guy did a good job. Wait, that's innate, and it's okay, but it's innate ageism. It's like, well, what's the difference in Julio having the interview or me having the interview. Right. And it's just, it's what we've got to face in the discrimination that we're representing.
That's powerful. Yeah.
There's a, closing out that section, there's a movie that I can't think of the title now that talked about, it was a race relations movie, and it talked about how because of those socializations, sometimes we can't prevent the first thought that comes into our mind. Like that just is what it is, because that is decades of people telling us certain things about this person. But what you can control is your second thought and then your behavior.
Well said.
And so to me, it's like when you do things like that, or when you're in space wherever you have power, it's like, okay, maybe your first thought is like, that person's small, I don't know that they could do that. But then your second thought and then your behavior should be, okay, let's take a beat. Give you the opportunity. Or who's missing from this conversation, or am I acting in a specific type of way? And I know that for me, all on mic, I know that for me, that has been super helpful to understand that like the best I could do is be a better human from day to day to day, but there's 3 decades worth of programming that has happened.
Build up on you.
And it's still happening every day, right? When we turn on the TV, when we look at our social media, it is all around us attributing value to who people are, and the work that we have to do is say, okay, that math is not mathing. I need to miscalculate and behave differently.
Well, you know, that makes me think real quick. It makes me think of like, you know, when I was growing up, little kids younger than me, I was like probably, let's say 12, 13, and you had 5-year-old kids calling me faggot. And where were they learning that from? It was from their parents. So that's,
You know what I come away with, and Jasmine's going to move us on here, but what I come away with is every single day I've got to get up, and the first thoughts of positive affirmation to myself is, I don't want to be Tucker Carlson. I don't. That's what I got from
Such a high bar.
Right. Like there's so much in between, like decent and Tucker Carlson. So much in between.
There we are.
Well, next, we're proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. every week.
I'm Julian Cavazos with Julian's Fountain of Youth, and the Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, Fox News, my friend Tucker Carlson, and radical conservatives have suggested that the LGBTQ community has a secret plan, and we can only guess it is for world domination. We couldn't agree more, and we're going to tell you all about it in our segment called The Gay Agenda.
In the Gay Agenda, we queer up entertainment. Sorry boys, Rick Astley is confirmed not gay, and he supports the LGBTQ+ community. After he was referred to as a gay guy on Family Guy, the question of Rick Astley's sexuality followed the famous singer for years. Although he has never addressed the rumors directly, Rick Astley revealed that he was engaged to his wife for years and credited his success to her. Following Astley's revelation that he was, in fact, not gay, fans took to Twitter to share their surprise. Although Astley is not gay and has been happily married to his wife, Len Bausager, he has taken to social media to show his support for the LGBTQ+ community.
In the Gay Agenda, we queer up the road to Stonewall. What was Marsha P. Johnson like? And is Stonewall Ed turning straight? For Black History Month, Happening Out Television Network is celebrating trailblazers of the Black LGBTQ+ community throughout the month. Today, we will be talking about the late queer activist Marsha P. Johnson. She has become immortalized for her icon status and style, but it seems that only a few surviving insiders can describe what Marsha was actually like on an intimate level. In a book called Transfigures and a new play, author Gary Legault does just that. Legault says Johnson was religious and polite and hardly ever drank or cursed. When Johnson hit the bars, she would only have one beer and then go back to Christopher Street where she panhandled. Legault's related play with music, Joseph and Marsha, is playing at theaters for the New York City in New York City's East Village through February 12th. In regards to the iconic LGBTQ plus location, actor and singer Tim Moss, who recently appeared on The Faye What Show, has commented that its historic impact has led to the dance floor being dominated by straight allies in recent years.
In the gay agenda, we queer up sports. RuPaul's Bob the Drag Queen reflects on WWE and why wrestling is inherently kind of gay.
His time with WCW would come to an end after he was fired for blading during the infamous King of the Road match at 1995's uncensored pay-per-view, something which was strictly against WCW's corporate policy at the time. On a side note, if you've never seen the King of the Road match, you have to go back and watch it, because it really has to be seen to be believed. It featured both Dustin and his opponent, the Blacktop Bully, fighting in the back of a moving truck that was covered in hay. The goal of the match was to climb to the front of the truck and be the first to sound the horn. Truly one of the strangest matches in wrestling history. But that was in Dustin's past now, and he had to start looking towards the future. What he didn't realize at the time was that he was about to stumble into what would go on to become the defining character of his career. In August 1995, Runnels returned to the WWF, this time debuting a new character called Goldust. Goldust was androgynous and sexually suggestive, an old Hollywood-obsessed drag queen who adorned themselves in gold, looking like an Oscar statue and going by the nickname The Bizarre One. Legend has it that when Vince McMahon initially pitched the character to Dustin, he accepted immediately, jumping at the chance to work for WWF again. Then, once the call was over, he immediately picked up the nearest dictionary so he could find out what androgynous meant. Needless to say, he was surprised by the answer and quickly became concerned about what he had gotten himself into. There were also rumors around the time that the character was just one more massive rib that the company was playing on the Rhodes family, similar to how Vince had Dusty dress in polka dot ring gear when he had wrestled with the company previously.
Well, the season 8 winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, Bob the Drag Queen, spoke about her love for all things wrestling during a January 31st episode of the podcast Stradio Lab. She specifically spoke about her love for WWE legend Dustin Rhodes, formerly known as Goldust, and why he is a great example of how queer wrestling really is. She said wrestling is inherently kind of gay, and she gave Goldust as an example. She talked about his gold and a black leather suit, wearing golden face paint and sporting a blonde wig. He was also nicknamed the Bizarre One due to his often creepily flirtatious demeanor.
In the gay agenda, we queer up business. A beauty brand now selling penis-shaped lipstick. Beauty brand Isamaya just launched this year's newest must-have lip product, a lipstick that comes in a penis-shaped tube. Available on the brand's website in 2 colors, cardinal red lipstick and sheer black gloss, it retails for $95. It is a fun, not so safe for work alternative to the boring, humdrum plastic tubes that are widely available in the market. It is sure to start a conversation every time you pull it out of your bag. This new lipstick by Issa Maya is hard to pass. The brand calls this new product Lips.
In the gay agenda, we queer up entertainment. From Queer as Folk to The Last of Us and essential queer TV shows. There were decades in which mainstream queer representation barely existed. However, the LGBT plus representation on television is becoming increasingly rich and varied. After years of struggle, there is now a range of LGBT plus TV shows on the small screen. Here are some queer TV essentials you cannot miss. Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit. Queer as Folk, 6 Feet Under, The L Word, The Bisexual, Gentleman Jack, It's a Sin, Heartstopper, A League of Their Own, Big Boys, and The Last of Us. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now? Probably on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Rajee Narine-Singh, Dr. Julio Capo Jr., Jasmen Rogers, and Jeff Oliverio. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to everyone in our LGBTQ plus community, we wish you
good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT